Frederick, Colorado. August 13, 2018, a pregnant woman and her 2 young daughters vanish without a trace. Their home is spotless, her car in the garage, her phone, keys and purse still inside. No signs of struggle, no clues of where she went, and her husband unfazed. What seemed like a happy, thriving suburban family would soon become the focus of a horrifying revelation, a secret beneath the surface, a betrayal that would shake a nation to its core. This is the story of the murder of Shanann Watts and her daughters Bella and Celeste. Welcome to the Deadly Diaries, where we dive into the darkest corners of true crime. Shanann was a 34-year-old devoted mother and wife who lived in Frederick, Colorado, with her husband, Chris Watts, and their 2 young daughters, Bella, 4, and Celeste, 3. Shanann was raised in Aberdeen, North Carolina, where the couple met as teenagers and eventually married. Some years later, the couple moved to Colorado for better opportunities and to raise their growing family. Shanann was 15 weeks pregnant with their 3rd child, a baby boy they had already named Nico. Shanann was highly active on social media, often sharing her daily life and the deep love she had for her children. Shanann worked from home as a sales consultant and balanced her job with caring for her children. Her friends and family would describe her as a devoted mother, a resilient fighter, and a vibrant, loving soul who always put others before herself. Chris, on the other hand, was described as quiet, reserved, and not particularly close or outgoing. Chris worked in the oil industry as a pipeline supervisor, a demanding job that required long hours. August 13, 2018, at 1:48 a.m., Shanann Watts returns home from a business trip. Her best friend Nicole Atkinson drops her off, unaware this is the last time anyone would see Shanann alive. Later that morning, she was due at a routine prenatal appointment, but Shanann never showed, and everyone who knew her knew that was not like her. Calls and texts went unanswered. Shanann's phone remained silent, a rare and chilling anomaly for someone so connected, so responsive. As the hours passed, concern turned to dread. Her best friend, Nicole, was the first to raise the alarm. Just hours earlier, she had hugged Shanann goodbye. By early afternoon, Nicole drove to the Watts family home. She knocked, rang, nothing. She found Shanann's vehicle in the garage with the car seat still inside. She called Chris and asked him to come home, worried that Shanann may have suffered a medical episode and passed out. However, Chris was dismissive, telling her that Shanann was with friends despite not being to name that friend. Nicole, not pleased with this, decided to call the police at 1:40 p.m.
I haven't been able to get a hold of her this morning, and I've gone to her house, and her car's there, and stuff like that, but she won't answer the door, she won't answer phone calls, she won't answer text messages, and I'm just really, really concerned. And she had a doctor's appointment this morning, and she didn't go to it, and I don't know what to do. I've called him and talked to him, and he said that she went on a play date with her other 2 daughters, but, if she went on a play date, they're both in car seats. Why would she not take her car?
When police arrived, Nicole waited anxiously outside. Shanann's purse, keys and phone all inside, and the house eerily quiet. When Chris Watts pulled into the driveway, he told officers he'd left for work early, between 5:15 and 5:30 that morning, and that she said she was going to a friend's house with the kids.
I left around 5:15. She was still here.
But something was off. Nicole took the lead, calling friends, checking rooms, searching for signs. Chris? He stood aside, strangely detached, saying little, almost annoyed by her presence. But what Nicole noticed next chilled her to her core. Shanann's medication was still there, something she would never leave without. Although the house was thoroughly searched, there was no evidence of foul play. Then came a twist. A neighbor invited police to review his surveillance footage. What they saw contradicted Chris's story. At 5:27 a.m., Chris was seen backing his truck into the driveway, an unusual move. He loaded multiple large items into the back. No sight of Shanann or the girls leaving.
I've never seen him. If he loads his stuff, he normally just walks and forth because I get him on camera.
What did he usually look?
The fact that he was in here and explaining to it over and over and over.
Well, odd.
He doesn't look worried. He looks like he's trying to cover his tracks.
Officers, suspicious, began piecing together a timeline. Shanann's phone, her keys, her car, her purse, all at home. Her husband's story, already unraveling. That night, Chris was no longer just a grieving husband. He was the prime suspect of his family's disappearance. Despite mounting suspicion, Chris appeared on local news the very next day.
Shanann, Bella, Celeste, if you're out there, just come back. Like, if somebody has her, just please bring her back. I need to see everybody. I need to see everybody again. This house is not complete without anybody here. Please bring her back.
Behind the scenes, law enforcement reviewed Chris's phone records and GPS data. It didn't match his story, and when the Colorado Bureau of Investigation issued an official missing endangered alert, Chris's carefully crafted image began to crack. Every inconsistency pointed toward something darker, something far more horrifying than anyone could have imagined.
I don't know where they're at. I do not know where they're at. If I could have my babies back home right now, I would.
August 15th, 2018. Chris Watts is brought in for questioning. The room is stark, white walls, no windows, and a rising heat of suspicion. Over the next 5 hours, his story would begin to crumble. Just a day earlier, he appeared on the news, pleading for his family's return. Calm, polished, believable to the untrained eye. But investigators weren't buying it. They had discovered something that changed everything. Chris Watts was having an affair. The mistress gave him motive, the surveillance footage gave them inconsistencies, and the phone data told a whole different story. Still, Chris stuck to his tale. Shanann left early that morning with the kids. He didn't know where they went, but the room was closing in on him. Detectives offered a polygraph. Chris agreed. He said he wanted the truth to come out. He said he wanted his family back. But the polygraph exhibited otherwise. It showed clear signs of deception.
He did not pass the polygraph test. Okay. So now we need to talk about what actually happened. And I feel like you're probably ready to do that.
I didn't lie to you on that polygraph, I promise. Chris, I know.
Chris, stop. It's time for a minute. Take a deep breath. I want you to take a deep breath right now.
The pressure finally broke through. Chris asked to speak to his father. What followed was a quiet, murky confession. Chris spoke in half-mumbled fragments.
I want to protect her. What? I don't want to protect her. You don't want to protect her? I don't know what else to say. She hurt him? Yeah. And then she said, you know, you smell it? Or choking? No. I didn't hear anything. When I was downstairs, they came back up and they were gone. I freaked out. I could see, like, she was on top. I'm choking her for her. Did she kill him? They're blue. Both of them. Yes. She choked both of them to death. I freaked out when she hit me.
Chris then also admitted to the affair the PD had learned about earlier. Her name was Nicole Kessinger, his co-worker. He told police he was no longer in love with Shanann. Now they had verbal confirmation of the motive and confession. And at 11:30 p.m., Chris Watts was arrested, charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder and 3 counts of tampering with human remains. On August 13th, in the early morning hours, Shanann confronted Chris about the affair after she had just returned home from a business trip. They argued. Tensions rose, and then Chris snapped. He strangled his pregnant wife with his bare hands. This wasn't a moment of blind rage. It lasted over 2 minutes. He dragged her body down the stairs. Bella, who was 4, saw everything.
What are you doing to mommy?
He placed Shanann's body in the truck, then loaded his daughters, alive, into the back seat and drove them 45 miles to an oil field. There, at the site, he buried Shanann in a shallow grave he dug days earlier. Then, he turned to his daughters. He used Celeste's own blanket to smother her. She didn't know what was coming.
And was it a hand over her face? Was it?
It was a blanket over and my hand.
And then so that just stopped her from breathing type thing? Okay. Did she struggle at all?
I don't think so, but I was blocking her face and my hand was right here.
And were you just pushing her against the back of the seat type thing? Okay. What was Bella doing?
She was sitting there next to it. She didn't know what was going on. I pulled CC out.
Okay, so once CC's gone, Bella's still there in the car alive, and then you pulled CC out. What'd you do with her? Okay. So she went into the tank and then went down to Bella. Tell me what happened there.
Exactly the same thing that happened to me to CC. And then I said, I don't even remember what I said.
Okay.
I don't know if I just said yes like a horrible person, or if I just put that blanket over her too and did the same thing.
Same blanket, same way?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
She said, no, Daddy. And that's the last thing she said.
Chris Watts had been planning his life with Nickel. They began seeing each other in June 2018, just 2 months before the murders. While Shanann and the girls were in North Carolina, Chris brought Nickel to his home. He told her they were separating. They began going on dates, sleeping together. They took a romantic trip to the great sand dunes. He sent her love letters. You keep my engine roaring. You bring me right back down to earth. Shanann sensed the change. She told friends she feared Chris was cheating. She even asked a friend to check his phone. Make sure there isn't some other bee and tinch I have to kill. By early August, their marriage was crumbling. At their baby's ultrasound, Chris barely engaged. And yet, on her way to Arizona for work, Shanann told a friend, "We had the best talk yet." But it was already too late. While Shanann was away, Chris was with Nickel. He was in too deep to turn back. And by August 13th, when Shanann confronted him, he made a monstrous choice. One that ended the lives of his wife, his unborn son, and his 2 beautiful daughters. This wasn't a crime of passion. It was premeditated, it was calculated, and it was irreversible. After confessing to the brutal murders of his pregnant wife and 2 young daughters on August 15, 2018, Chris Watts was arrested that very night. The next day, investigators recovered the bodies of Shanann, Bella, and Celeste at an oil field owned by his former employer, bodies that had been hidden with calculated cruelty. The public watched in horror as the true extent of the crime began to surface. On August 21st, less than a week after his arrest, Chris was formally charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder, 3 for each of his family members, and 2 additional counts due to the girls being under the age of 12, and Chris having been in a position of trust. Added to this were charges for the unlawful termination of Shanann's pregnancy and 3 counts of tampering with human remains. His employer, Anadarko Petroleum, swiftly fired him, and bail was denied at his initial court appearance. In a move that stunned even seasoned court officials, on November 6, 2018, Chris Watts pleaded guilty to all 9 charges. He abandoned the false narrative that Shanann had killed their daughters and admitted full responsibility for all the murders. The court proceedings were swift, but their impact was seismic. Chris Watts had officially become the most hated man in America. On November 19, 2018, sentencing was handed down. The punishment was severe, 5 life sentences without the possibility of parole, plus 48 years for the unlawful termination of Shanann's pregnancy, and another 36 years for the disposal of his family's bodies.
Words that come to mind when I hear the evidence in this case are a senseless crime and the viciousness of the crime.
Public interest in the case was overwhelming. The notoriety followed Chris even behind prison walls. Despite no physical altercations being reported, threats were constant. The Colorado Department of Corrections deemed him unsafe in their custody. On December 3rd, just 2 weeks after sentencing, Chris was transferred to the Dodge Correctional Institution, a maximum security facility in Waupun, Wisconsin. It is there he remains, serving out his sentence in near-total isolation. Almost a year later, on November 18, 2019, Shanann's parents, Frank and Sandy Razuchek, were awarded $6 million in a civil suit against Chris Watts. That figure included $3 million for the deaths of Shanann and the girls, and $3 million for emotional pain and suffering, with an 8% interest rate applied annually. The ruling was symbolic. Chris would never be able to profit from the murders, not from interviews, books, or documentaries. This legal safeguard was especially significant following the September 2020 release of the Netflix documentary American Murder, The Family Next Door. The film reignited global interest in the case, thrusting Chris Watts back into public conversation. According to People magazine, following the documentary's release, Chris began receiving letters from women who were, inexplicably, expressing affection and compassion for him. Reports say he even replied to some of them. However, Chris will undoubtedly spend the rest of his life serving out his sentence. The Watts family murders serve as a chilling reminder that the most unthinkable crimes can hide behind the most ordinary facades. A seemingly perfect family, a beautiful home, all masking a darkness no one could have imagined. In the end, the tragedy wasn't just the loss of Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and unborn baby Nico. It was the betrayal of trust, the destruction of innocence, and the irreversible impact on everyone left behind. This case shocked the world not just because of its brutality, but because it made us question how well we truly know the people closest to us. Thank you for joining us on this episode of The Deadly Diaries. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share to stay connected with stories that matter. And remember, if you or someone you know is in danger, please seek help. Until next time, stay safe, stay vigilant, and never stop asking why.